It's crossover season, not only football. Number 5 Tennessee Volunteers in action later today against South Carolina, looking to get in the college football playoffs. But it's also basketball time on Rocky Top. The battle for Atlantis begins this week, and we got a special guest here on this bonus show of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, what's up? And happy Saturday, happy game day, happy football game day, and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, little bonus show. I'm your host, Eric Cain. So glad to have you guys along here with me today, and we're doing a little bonus show because there's so much football content throughout the week that I haven't had time to talk much basketball. And Tennessee basketball, it's one of the projected 2-3 seeds in this upcoming NCAA tournaments, and of course it's a long way away. I know Tennessee lost to Colorado the other day at Bridgestone Arena, but no one should freak out over November basketball, okay, in my opinion, the good or the bad. But Tennessee 2-1, about to head down for the Battle of Atlantis, and of course Rick Barnes has got a very veteran-led unit this year, looking to make some noise as always. And to help me out in discussing some Tennessee basketball, we're gonna do a Locked On crossover with Isaac Schade. He is the host of Locked On Tarheels. He's also the host of the new Locked On College Basketball podcast. So first and foremost, Isaac, tell me about the new show, where we can find it, and how it's going so far.
Yeah, great to be here, Eric. Thanks so much for having me. Absolutely. We're just finishing the second week of Locked On College Basketball. So as you said, a brand new program. Andy Patton and I are the co-hosts of that. He's one of our other great hosts on the Locked On network. Things have been going well. There's been some fun basketball. It was kind of a boring first week, frankly. None of the top teams in the nation were willing to play anybody. But finally this week, we had some big time matchups. Texas absolutely smacked Gonzaga. I know that's something Tennessee fans are looking forward to in the SEC Big 12 matchup in January. And we're having a great time. So if you want to check us out, you can find us on YouTube, Locked On College Basketball. We are obviously on all the audio platforms for podcasts, and of course on Twitter, if Twitter still exists by the time you watch or listen to this podcast.
It's a very good point. Very good point. You never know in today's age, that's for sure. How is it covering all of college basketball? Like, I'm so one-minded centric. Like, Tennessee Vols, I cover the Vols. If I had to cover a little SEC, I could probably do that. I mean, I could talk. Now, I used to do radio, so you talk, about everything. But, I mean, you got big games on all the other time. Like, how do you facilitate, I guess, or program your show when there's just so much going on?
That's a great question. There are 363 teams in Division I college basketball.
Nope.
Quite frankly, and this is a bigger picture discussion, I think the NCAA needs to slice it in half or something like that. But honestly, it's a blast. I love getting to do it. I have followed college basketball my whole life. I've loved it my whole life and always wanted to do this, to be able to talk about it at the national level. So for me, it's like a dream to get to watch college basketball all day, keep it on in the background, and then have discussions like these. And so for me, it's an opportunity to highlight all these young men, these coaches who are playing the game of college basketball, which I think is the most exciting and fun thing. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. There's a lot we got to fix with college basketball, but it's an absolute pleasure getting to figure out who to highlight and what to highlight. And as you said, there's always games, always something happening, always some kind of scandal. And so there's always plenty to talk about.
Well, Isaac, I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a bit of a Duke background. You're also the host of Locked On Tar Heels, so
That's right.
I didn't go to Duke, of course. I'm not smart enough for that, but I do have some family ties to Duke. I've got Coach K over here behind me. He's not a part of the family, I promise you that. I've got little Duke, little Beanie over here. You joined the network, and Carolina went on that run, last year. I mean, how's your time been with the network? We're going to talk Tennessee basketball, I promise, but how's your time been so far with the network? And I feel like that was just the perfect time to join last season.
It really was. It was fortuitous timing. It kind of got off on the wrong foot because my very first show I did was a crossover with our Locked On Duke host JJ Jackson, who does a fantastic job. And then that was the first game Carolina and Duke played last year, where Duke absolutely smacked the Tar Heels in the Dean E. Smith Center. And then it was a couple weeks later where Carolina, as you said, went on that run. And so very fortuitous and fortunate timing for me, because it helped Locked On Tar Heels grow really quickly, and it's been a great start. I love this network. As you know, it's an honor to get to be part of it. And sorry, something's happening with my camera here, but
I'll give you a second just to figure it out. Tennessee, there you go, you're back. As far as the Tennessee Vols coming in, and very disappointing exits last year in the NCAA tournaments. You won a conference tournament championship for the first time in like 40 years, which is something to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Tennessee, Auburn, Arkansas, some of Kentucky, of course, some of the big dogs in the SEC. Coming into this season, what do you kind of like about this team, big picture outlook, and how far can this team go in your opinion?
It's a great question. Well, as you said off the top, this is a very veteran team. I mean, obviously, there's been Julian Phillips, who has been starting, a freshman, started every game thus far. But outside of that, you've got an experienced unit. Obviously, you lose the experience of like John Fulkerson and who I think was the most talented player last season in Kennedy Chandler. But with kind of shifting the starting lineup around for this last game against Florida Gulf Coast, outside of Phillips, Rick Barnes had 3 seniors and a grad transfer starting. And so in today's college basketball, with the transfer portal and everything else, and people trying to figure out who are we, to be able to start that much experience. And I know one of those was Tyreek Key, who is a transfer from Indiana State, but even still, to start that level of experience in the SEC, I think speaks volumes for Tennessee. As to what I expect out of them this year, I see the SEC with this top tier that is over and above everybody. And that would be, I think Kentucky is at the top of that heap right now. And then Tennessee and Arkansas right with them in that top tier. And then I'd go to a second tier, which is both Alabama schools. I think Alabama and Auburn. I know Auburn's lost a lot with Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith last year going to the NBA, but I think they've brought enough in both through the transfer portal and in freshmen to compete. But they are in the second tier behind the Vols, behind Kentucky, and behind Arkansas. As for long-term things, listen, Tennessee has lost the last 4 years in the NCAA tournament to a seed worse than them. And I think that is the question, is at what point in this Rick Barnes era are the Vols going to be able to go over the top and win an NCAA tournament games that they're supposed to win against teams that they are ranked higher than? Now, I know last season there were some issues there because really they should have been a 2 seed and they got a 3. And I think that obviously hurts things, but I think they have the talent and experience to take it into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. If things fall right, maybe even the first Final Four in program history. But what I'm looking at to see is who is this year's Kennedy Chandler, who has that top flight basketball game, who takes a big rise this season. Is Julian Phillips that guy to come in and do it? Does Olivier Kamwad just take a huge step forward and really put this team on his back? Is it Josiah Jordan-James, who stepped in to the starting lineup this past game as Ziegler went to the bench? Those are kind of some of the things I'm watching for.
Yeah, Triple J, I mean, he's another one of those veterans that's been starting, pretty much since his freshman year, and had some offseason injuries and kind of slowly working him back. Zakai goes to the bench. I want to ask you about that here in just a moment, but
for sure,
big picture here before we take a reset. Rick Barnes has been so great for Tennessee.
Right.
Great man, great human, great basketball coach, Hall of Famer. Tennessee is so much better off with Rick Barnes than they were before him, no doubt about it. Tennessee's recruiting at a level that, in my opinion, I don't know if they'll ever recruit at again with Rick Barnes. I mean, it's been great. But his philosophy is always defense first. First.
That's right.
Tennessee plays a smothering brand of defense. And a lot of times you lack on the offensive end of having just a sharp shooter or just some of the guys that feel confident in their abilities to go and go drive to the rim, whatever the case may be. Is that, in today's basketball, is that still a viable option? Is that still a way to go, or should you be focusing a lot more on the offensive end?
That's a great question, Eric. I think defense, I always say that defense travels, right? Even
Mhm.
on days when you're not hitting your shots and things aren't falling, whether it's Rick Barnes in Tennessee, whether it's Tony Bennett's pack line at Virginia, whomever it may be, defense can do things game in and game out. Now, it fell off a little bit in that Colorado game you referenced earlier last Sunday. But as you said, it's November. Let's not worry about that. We'll reset in the Bahamas next weekend and then really know some things. But yeah, I mean, one of the issues I see early for Tennessee is the backcourt of Ziegler and excuse, excuse me, and
Ziegler and Key and some of those other guys.
Vespi are struggling. Neither of
No.
them have shot well out of the gate, and so that's the thing is both Vespi and Ziegler are going to have to hit shots for Tennessee to be able to contend at the highest levels we think they can get to this season.
We got plenty more to come up here with Isaac Schade, host of Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Tarheels. But it is Saturday. This is a bonus show, and this show is brought to you in part by Underdog Fantasy. All right, it is a really, really good thing that I have jumped in on this football season. It's been so much fun. It's available to play in over 30 states, and I do the pick'ems where you pick between 2 and 5 players across any team, not just your team, but any team, and you decide if they're going to finish higher or lower the total that is set. It's one of the easiest fantasies to play games out there, and you can win some cold hard cash while you're doing it. So, for me, Hendon Hooker, whatever they put up there, usually I'll take the over in terms of passing yards. Hendon Hooker's threw for 355 yards last week against the number 13th ranked defense in college football, Missouri. Hendon Hooker is having a Heisman type season. So pretty much anything they put up there for Hendon Hooker, I'm taking the over because that's just the type of year that he's had. But again, like I said, it doesn't have to be just your team, just Tennessee. You can go and you see the Purdue game for tomorrow. Aiden O'Connell, we remember him from the Music City Bowl. The over-under is set at 313.5 against Northwestern. And so I like that to be under. I mean, Aiden O'Connell shows an awful lot of poise and everything, but 313.5 for this week number 11. I'm going to take the under there while Charlie Jones is sitting at 98.5 receiving yards. I like that to be the over. So it doesn't just have to be Tennessee or Hendon Hooker. It can be any college football game out there happening today, and you can win cold hard cash at Underdog Fantasy. So sign up today with the promo code Locked On. That's one word, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Deposit $100, get $100 for free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Locked On, one word. Get in the college football pick'em action today with Underdog Fantasy. It's a bonus show, Locked On Vols, here on a Saturday. Tennessee football. Hey, coming up later tonight, 7 o'clock at South Carolina. A chance to win 10 regular season games for the first time since 2003. And there's still a game coming up next week at Vanderbilt. So it's one of those seasons, guys. It's been a whole lot of fun. Let's see if Tennessee can handle the road environment a little bit better today than it did against number 1 Georgia a couple of weeks ago. Tennessee very much in the playoff pictures. But hey, we talk Tennessee football 5 days a week. That's how we do this show, this podcast. We got to work in some basketball, all right, because it is basketball season on Rocky Top, officially crossover season. And to help us out here, we bring back on our guy, Isaac Schade of Locked On College Basketball. So I was asking you about Rick Barnes right before the break. Let's go back to one of those new additions. Julian Phillips is going to be really, really good. I think Tyreek Key might make the biggest difference on this year's team. He's a Tennessee guy. He's a veteran. He's played a lot of college football, dealt with some injuries. But I think Tyreek Key, especially with this guy Ziegler going to the bench, that veteran backcourt player is capable of bringing the ball down. I think he's going to be big time for Tennessee this year.
I think you're absolutely right, Eric. Coming in from Indiana State, where he anticipated last year actually playing his grad year before, as you said, had those injuries, and now gets to come close to home, close to Knoxville there, and get to have this grad season, man. And just what a dream, right? Like, this is what college basketball is about to me. It's somebody getting to come play at the SEC level for their final year, just a couple hours away from home. How great is that? And as you said, Zakai Ziegler goes to the bench for the third game against Florida Gulf Coast. Tyreek Cain comes into the starting lineup, along, as we said earlier, with Josiah Jordan-James getting back from that offseason injury. And this is a really interesting lineup that Coach Barnes rolled out. No player taller than 6'9", and that would be Olivier Kamwa. And so, like, man, I love to see that. I love what Tyreek Cain's experience, athleticism can bring to this team. And as for Ziegler, last year he was at his best because he was coming off the bench right behind Kennedy Chandler and was able to, as a sixth man, really just impose his will, particularly on the defensive side of the court. And so, man, maybe I'm just really curious to see, like, let's watch it this week down in the Bahamas. How does Coach Barnes continue to deploy this team? Does Cain get a shot at the starting lineup for a couple weeks here to just see, like, is that a better way for us to start our game? And then knowing that Ziegler's ultimately going to play starter level minutes, whether he's starting or coming off the bench anyway. And so I'm right with you. I think he is a massive addition for this team. And that's part of what college basketball is now. We are looking each year at not necessarily just saying freshmen, but newcomers, whether that's freshmen or transfers. And Tyreek Cain is an integral part of this team.
Yeah, it's funny. Zakai Ziegler, I mean, he said whenever, I guess, preseason began, one of the media availabilities, he's like, hey, I don't want to start. I mean, I'll do whatever, but like, I love the role of coming off the bench. And so, everybody, myself included, we all got a job to do. So whenever Rick Barnes had that comment the other day, like, he's going to be benched, you got to write the story. But like, again, he's going to play starter minutes. Nothing much is going to change, in my opinion, in that regard. Something you brought up there, the small ball. Tennessee loves playing small ball.
Yeah.
And because of the versatility of a guy like Julian Phillips, who will continue to grow into it, but Josiah Jordan-James, for the past couple of years, he has been able to play. I mean, he came in as a 1. He came in as a point guard. He's a 3, but he's been able to go 4 when playing the small ball. It's not, I mean, it's great lineup flexibility, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's not something you want to, live in. But I do think with the injury right now to Uros Plavsic, who's probably likely going to be out for the tournament here in the battle for Atlantis, Tennessee's probably going to roll with that small guy lineup. What do you like about that lineup and guys like Josiah Jordan-James in college basketball who can just kind of do a little bit of everything with that versatility? I feel like those type of guys really make good teams click.
Absolutely they do. And then we think about other guys who have done that, like Grant Williams, man, what a dynamic lineup that was with him playing a pretty similar role there, and somebody that Rick Barnes did a great job of developing. And I know with Josiah Jordan-James, we hadn't expected him to be in college this long, but he is, and it's great. It's great for the game. And so I see not just him, but versatility at multiple positions. You talked about Julian Phillips growing into some of that versatility. I love that Olivier Kamwa in that small ball lineup is essentially your 5, but can get out and guard in space. And you don't always have that with some of these, this year we're talking so much about these big returning centers in college basketball, like Drew Timme and Oscar Tshiebwe and Armando Bacot. Some of those struggle to get out in space and guard. And so this can be kind of that Golden State Warriors death lineup type thing. And it's not something that everyone's used to playing. And so Rick Barnes, I think, is a master at figuring out, even if we're going to deploy a smaller lineup, how can we utilize that to our advantage, both on the defensive end with our quickness, with our aggressiveness, and then use some plays on the offensive side to get guys open, make plays. But then again, as we talked about, that's going to mean that Vescovi, Ziegler, they're going to have to start making shots. They're both shooting, like, I think Ziegler's at 22.7% from 3 right now. Vescovi's at 31.8. And that's got to go up if you're going to be able to be ultimately successful with a small ball lineup.
All right, Isaac, last thing, man, and I appreciate you joining me. We'll have to do this again. The battle for Atlantis, the field is Butler, BYU, Dayton, Kansas, NC State, Southern Cal, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. What do you like about this field, and who do you think can make some real noise before it's all said and done?
That's a great question. So what I love is Tennessee starts with Butler. And for those who aren't aware, Thad Matta is actually back at Butler right now. And man, I'm so sorry about my camera, but we'll keep going here. And it should open back up in a second. I don't know what's happening today. There we go. So sorry, Cain. Yeah, so starting out with Butler in this field and then either BYU or USC after that. the hope for me for Tennessee is that they win and Kansas continues to win, and that's who meets in your championship game. Because outside of that, you don't have any other teams in the top 25 in this field. BYU, USC, who would be in round 2, are both sub 50 Ken Palm teams. NC State, Dayton was top 25, but just lost to UNLV this week. And so there are going to be some challenges, certainly. But I think the biggest and best test for Tennessee is if they can win all the way through, and the reigning national champion Kansas Jayhawks can win all the way through and match up in the title game. Because I think ultimately that's going to give Rick Barnes and the rest of the coaching staff a great barometer of where this team is at right now. And then obviously there's some other great non-con matchups coming. They're going to play at Arizona. That's going to be tough, as we said earlier, going to Texas in late January. And so some really great tests in the non-con portion of the schedule.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, like I said at the top of the show, you don't want to freak out over November basketball,
No,
a win or
absolutely not.
lose. However, a win like over Kansas in this tournament potentially is one that you can hold on to and say, hey,
Right.
in March, when you're talking about 2-3 seed, whatever it may be, Tennessee pulls off a win over Kansas, that can maybe help them down the line. So there's a lot of validity to it, and Tennessee will be in action starting Wednesday at the Battle for Atlantis. Isaac, appreciate it, man. This has been fun. We need to make it a routine to get you back on here on Locked On Vols to talk a little Rick Barnes and Tennessee basketball.
Absolutely. Good luck against South Carolina today, Vols fans.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, that is Isaac Schade, the host of the new Locked On College Basketball Show, and he does a great job with Locked On Tarheels as well. Basketball season is in full effect. It's crossover season, football and basketball, a lot to talk about right here on Locked On Vols. Guys, appreciate it. It's been a bonus show, and it's been a whole lot of fun. Tennessee football will be in action later today at 7 o'clock. ESPN is where you can watch it. They'll be at South Carolina. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter @_Cainer and @LockedOnVols for continual coverage all day long. And, of course, we'll discuss it all right here on Locked On Vols on your Monday show. Appreciate it, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, and we'll be back again on Monday, everybody.